Oh, welcome to the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. You figured that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. It's a quick show today. Why is it quick? Because time is of the essence. I was told I was going to be on a call for 2 minutes, and it turned into 22 minutes. But that's okay because it was what is best for business. And friends, if nothing else in this life, when there is a good business call and a good business opportunity, yours truly is going to absolutely make sure that gets locked in and taken care of. And so here we are. Hello. Welcome in. I hope everybody's having a great day. It is a fantastic Friday here on the show. We have a bunch to get into. I saw the comments are already loaded up, so what I'm going to do right now is down here in the bottom side of the screen, you can see it. Everybody can live it. Live, laugh, love. You can have the comments down here in the bottom corner of the screen. The first one to pop up is Peter Tom Willis saying, no worries ever, but we do have a whole lot of comments to get to. I'm going to try to fly through as many of them as I can. By the way, Peter Tom Willis has apparently become an advocate for the Russ Joy Show in other chats, which is hilarious to me and greatly appreciated. Let me see. Where was it at? Peter says, I'm going to stop propping him up on other pods chats because I was running behind today. Very nice, Peter. Peter flagged me yesterday and was like, hey, gave you kudos on another show's comments. I was like, stop. You don't have to do that, but it's very kind. I do appreciate it. So we have a lot to get into today. Is a lot of it really super relevant Philly sports stuff? A little bit of it is. Is some of it tangentially affiliated with Philadelphia? Yeah. Is one of the topics absolutely nothing to do with Philadelphia sports? You're darn tootin'. But I figured, you know what? It's a Friday. We're getting ourselves ready. Next week is the return of students to many school districts, which means next week, back to having the house to myself. Turn the dice. I can clean this house. I don't know if anybody else is like this. You guys can let me know in the comments if you're like this. Now, I happen to have the benefit of working from home, which for the most part is a good thing. I do occasionally miss actually having colleagues to talk to in an office / back in the teaching days school setting. And I very much do like talking to people. So working from home is a little bit complicated, but I have the blessing of working from home. But what that also means is after everybody goes off to work, everybody goes off to school, I take a few minutes in the morning. I pick up all the toys that my children have left out that they, for whatever reason, didn't pick up, but they should have picked up. I clean those up. I clean up breakfast. I get everything cleared away. I clear down the counters, the dining room table. I move everything out of the way, run the robot that does the vacuuming and the mopping. Maybe the best possible investment you could ever make in your home is to get a legitimate robot vacuum mop. Not the kind that you have to pop the vacuum off and then pop the mop back on. No. We have a Robo-Rock, which is, I think, better than an iRobot, unless iRobot wants to, sponsor the show, in which case iRobots are great. But we have a Robo-Rock. It lifts the mopping pad to go over the carpet, and then it drops it back down. It takes itself back to its dock. It cleans itself. We make the joke it wipes its own ass because it does. It's it cleans its own mop pad. It sucks the dirt out of its dustbin. It's amazing. It's technology that I can't even fathom. But it is the greatest investment we've ever made in our house. And I do all that so that when the kids and my wife come home from school and work respectively, that they have a clean home to come to, and then within 10 minutes it's wrecked again. But at least during the course of the day when I go upstairs, it feels great. The summer is great. Love my wife, love my kids. But by God, this house can get turned upside down in a jiffy because if I don't do that stuff at night, and I'm pretty tired at night, you get a little TV time, maybe you eat some chocolate chips sitting on the couch, have a little ice cream, maybe a snack. You don't feel like picking everything up and running the robot at night. The house maybe gets a little bit dirtier than you want. And so today, everybody was out of the house. And I took a moment and I went through my routine and I kind of felt like I was a robot. I was going through everything. The house is nice and clean. Everybody came home. I haven't been upstairs since they've gotten back. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a mess. But next week, everybody's back at school, everybody's back at work, and it's just little old me cleaning the house, doing the Russ Joy Show 3 times a week. I'm getting very, very close to setting an actual time where every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday you can find the show because I'm starting to think it might be a good idea to have a time to bank on instead of it just being a, hey, just be ready, ring the bell, get notified whenever we go live, and, then we rock and roll with whoever's here in the comments section. But I'm not afraid of commitment. But I am a little bit worried. We used to do the show at 8:30. It doesn't work out with the bus time. So I don't know. We'll see. But we are going to figure it out. All right, real quick. I'm going to go out to the comments, and then we're going to get into what's going on in today's show. Chris Freed asks, Russ, have you completed the 999 challenge? 9 hot dogs, 9 beers, in 9 innings. It's right up your tubular meat alley. I could easily do the 9 hot dogs. I could not do the 9 beers. Not a chance in hell. Not only could I not do it physically, I don't want to. I don't like beer. I mean, I'll drink beer sometimes. I'll drink a nice, like a Land Shark, maybe a Cape May Tan Limes. I'll drink one of those, maybe 3 of those on a nice hot summer day. I found myself appreciating a hard seltzer a lot more this summer, which makes me feel pretty awful about myself. The idea of having 9 beers just kind of gurgling around in the belly, I don't think that's for me. I don't think that's my kind of life. But I could do the 9 hot dogs. That is absolutely something I could do. I might even be able to go beyond 9 hot dogs. Now, if it's those dollar dogs, they're even smaller and easier to down. I could probably do 12, 15, maybe 18, but 9 is not a problem. Can I replace the 9 beers with 9 additional hot dogs? 18, I think I could do within 9 innings. Now, I might hate myself after the fact, and if it's true that you like shave a year off your life for every hot dog you've eaten, it'd be kind of a shame to lose 18 years of life. However, if they were good hot dogs, maybe it's worth it. I don't know. Amadeo calls it a death challenge. Chris Freed notes that if the challenge can land below the fold on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, I say it's legit. Then we also had people kind of going back and forth about why the show is getting pushed back a little bit, and it's okay. Peter Tom Willis asks to a video guy Amadeo, do you think the Phillies have something special brewing? And then Amadeo responded with I hope so. Freed also thinks that I should do the Trumpian thing and just kind of have the blank background until the show loads. I've thought about that in the past. It would be kind of funny to just have the empty chair or the empty backdrop and then walk in here. My fellow Philadelphians, we've got some great news to talk about, some fantastic Philadelphia sports stories, don't we, folks? We've got the end of the preseason coming up tonight. We love the Eagles preseason, but we love NFL Week 1. It's very close. College football coming back. And, of course, we have a Philadelphia Phillies team that looks like they might have a chance to do something very impactful. Maybe a World Series run. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. But we do love the Phillies. The Flyers very close to starting training camp. And the Philadelphia Union, they look great. And there's apparently a basketball team, but we don't talk about them. We're kind of like Bruno. The Sixers are like Bruno. We don't talk about Bruno. No. All right, anyway. Let's see. JH is here with a good afternoon. Hello. Also says sweet OBX shirt. I appreciate it. Got this one last year. Hold on, let's see. Got the OBX life. The videos coming out of Outer Banks have been wild with Hurricane Aaron. I'm assuming that many of you have seen them, but I actually pulled up the Apple weather app a couple days ago to show the kids like just how bad the winds were down there, and they have like the swirly John skis going, and I was like, man, this is very intense. Like, look how fast the wind was. And then I unfortunately followed like 7 different Outer Banks groups that I didn't even realize I was following on Facebook. And it's people just putting up their videos of like the flooding and then like people trying to surf and like some lady running into the waves with her toddler, which I think is probably irresponsible parenting. Not sure. But if you're down in the Outer Banks, you can check in and let me know. I know we usually have somebody in the comments who is an Outer Banks lifer, so you can let me know. This is great too. JH says the Russ Joy media empire primed for explosive growth. Just don't take that venture capitalist money because they ruin everything they touch. Yeah, so I am not selling out to venture capital here. I've gone through that negotiation once before. Not venture capital, but I did go through that negotiation once before, along with Anthony for Snow the goalie. And we've talked about that on the show, about the outlet that tried to buy the show and rebrand it. And yeah, that ain't happening. Not happening. But we do have some things potentially in the pipeline for this show, for Phightin Words, for Snow the Goalie. Plan on being back with the Flyers and doing Press Row Show again this year, but we might be expanding a little bit of what we're doing. We're looking forward to a lot of things going on over there. I just can't ever envision a scenario where we want to give up the shows. I think that's where you start to run into problems. And, you work a little bit on this stuff, and you want it to succeed. Let's see. Amadeo saying that he's going on vacation The final week of September might be a nightmare week for Russ. Amadeo's taking a laptop. No, I'm just kidding, but maybe. How do we do that at the end of September? That just seems like a bad offense, really. All right, let's see. Ray Supper says, living in Florida allows us to meet real Cowboys fans that came from Texas as opposed to the ones from Pennsauken, and the real ones know Jerry effed up. I have not watched the Cowboys documentary yet, but I've seen enough to know that I need to watch the Cowboys documentary. I also haven't watched the Chiefs one. I saw some clips about very dejected Chief ownership and watching Patrick Mahomes' wife being very sad in the past Super Bowl. So you got to love that. Mike Boots is here. Says, what's up, Russ? How you doing? And Jim Grasso says, never trust a guy with 3 first names. Who's the guy with 3 first names? You got to let us know. Are you talking about Peter Tom Willis? We like Peter Tom Willis. I don't know who the other person with 3 first names is. You got to let us know, Jim. All right, let's get into it. We have a lot to cover on today's show. And again, oh, look at this. St. Nancy checks in. Smashed chicken wontons for dinner? Sorry, I didn't know how else to get a hold of you. St. Nancy, smashed wontons? Heck yes, smashed chicken wontons. Okay. Do I then have to post a picture of the smashed chicken wontons into the Russ Joy Show YouTube community page? No, might have to. I don't know. We might have to. Well, that sounds delicious. Son's got a soccer game. There's a big soccer tournament this whole weekend, so the hype is real. Gotta get yourselves, hyped up, fueled up for the games. See how the kids' team does. I think they're going to be a good team this year. So we shall see. All right. Dear friends, Romans countrymen, lend me your ears. We're going to get through a few things here. We talked about JT Realmuto the other day. We gave him his flowers. But on this show, I would like to think that we have been an agent for change here at the Russ Joy Show. And it could not happen without each and every one of you. We've actually crossed the 1,500 subscriber mark on the show, which is pretty cool. I did have somebody who went out of their way very early this morning to criticize the following of this show. Can you imagine that? In this economy, we are criticizing the number of subscribers on a channel. But there was somebody this morning, a noted hater of yours truly, who went out of their way. Oh, sorry, it was last night at 11:14 p.m. I put out that it was pretty wild. Thanks to everybody for the support. And this person said, it's a paltry number of subscribers in comparison to your ego. I've seen more humans standing in the Home Depot parking lot line looking for work. If there are 1,500 people in line looking for work at Home Depot, Home Depot's doing something right. So good on that person for pointing it out. I hope all those people get hired at the Home Depot. I also happen to think there's a little bit of hyperbole. And based on the fact that this person's mere existence is mostly to try to troll me on Twitter, I'd say they need to find a new hobby. Or touch grass. Or perhaps both. All right, now, let's get into the thing that actually did matter. And again, I give credit to everyone out there. If you are a viewer of the Russ Joy Show on YouTube, Facebook, X, short-form content on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, you had a hand in a very critical thing for the Philadelphia Phillies, the thing that just may earn them a World Series championship this year. You helped in the peer pressure, in the fan pressure, in the fan outrage against NBC Sports Philadelphia. Because, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. NBC Sports Philadelphia, they have caved. We talked about this on a show earlier this week, that people have been complaining about Jhoan Duran's entrance, that we weren't seeing the intro, the pro wrestling intro, where the man comes out to a mashup of a couple of songs. He comes out with the spiders running across the boards, and the lights are going, and there's fire, and there's flames, and he's got the Undertaker's gong at the start, and it's a really intricate intro. But NBC Sports Philly hasn't been showing it. They've instead been choosing to go to commercial break. And then we talked about how Amy Fadul put out a very level-headed tweet about how there are a certain amount of commercial breaks, and if you don't take one at that point and something happens in the rest of the game or something else happens and there's not a place to take that commercial break, it's an issue. We posited on this show that perhaps the team should try to sell a picture-in-picture ad. Perhaps there's a sponsor like a Cure Auto Insurance or a Papa John's or somebody who says, you know what? Let's go bottom scroller on the screen, maybe a promo code for a percentage off. And Tom McCarthy says, Duran's entrance is brought to you by Papa John's. Use promo code Duran to get 10% off your next pizza order. I don't even like Papa John's, but I would buy a Papa John's pizza just because they're allowing us to watch the Duran entrance. Well, I don't know if that's happening yet, and this article is behind a paywall, and you can bet your ass I'm not paying for the Philadelphia Inquirer, but I will note that they're the ones who put the story out first, and so am I presenting you at least slightly partial information instead of the full picture? Maybe. I'm acknowledging it. But Rob Tourneau put this out earlier today. NBC Sports Philadelphia is switching gears and will show Duran's full intro live during evening home games for the rest of the season. Now, I have questions. I have comments. I have concerns. Did NBC Sports Philadelphia do what they should have done, which is, of course, pay attention to the Russ Joy Show, monitor the comment section where people were begging, pleading with NBC Sports Philadelphia to show the Duran entrance, and we can all believe that this show had a little piece of the push behind showing the Duran intro. Well, of course that's true. Who else are they going to pay attention to? Pretty much everyone else. It doesn't matter. So Duran's entrance is going to be shown on all home games at night for the rest of the regular season. That obviously means that there's a little caveat here. Does that mean that, are there any day games left? I'd have to assume that there are at least a couple of home day games available. Are they not going to show it then? Perhaps not, because you don't get the flames the same way. The light show doesn't really appeal the same way that it does in prime time. But it's a hell of a win. And make no mistake about it. This change is because of you. This change is because of Phillies fans. This change is because people saw an injustice in the world and they decided to complain. Sometimes complaining works. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes in this life we complain about things that we have absolutely no control over. Sometimes we complain about the price of eggs. Sometimes we complain about the price of travel soccer. Sometimes we complain about having to pay $30 a month for an ESPN DTC product, despite the fact that we pay for YouTube TV and should be shown the same respect that Spectrum subscribers and Verizon Fios subscribers get. We complain about a lot of things in this life, and we don't control a lot of them. But the Duran entrance, we had an impact on, all of us together. Because make no mistake about it, and I talked about this the other day as well, regional sports networks are going the way of the dodo. NBC Sports Philly won't be a thing in 10 years. Might not even be a thing in 5 years. So at least they are listening to the people now, while the channel is still on the air and streaming. It's good to see that somebody decided, yeah, we have to do right by the fans. Now, the question is going to become, how are they going to make up for that commercial break that they usually take between the bottom of the 8th and the top of the 9th? What's going to happen? Are they going to take another commercial break during pregame? Are they going to try to figure out a way to sneak one in at another point during the game? Or is it going to be like what I was talking about the other day? We're going to get like a picture-in-picture. Are we going to get some other kind of commercial advertisement that's going to take the place of the normal commercial break? I don't know. I don't know how it's going to work. Are they going to go from the regular game to a commercial break before post-game live to fulfill that requirement? I don't know. But we will find out. And in fairness, Rob Tourneau might have actually talked about it in the story, but again, it's behind the paywall at the Inquirer, and I'm not paying for that. No offense to the Philadelphia Inquirer. I'm not paying for that. So, anyway, might be an incomplete story, but in fairness, you didn't come here for journalism. You just came here for a little bit of joy in your life. All right, so let's go over here. I see people are commenting on it over here. So, JH says, yes, love it. Peter Tom Wells, get it. Mike Boots, I'm expecting a sponsorship for it. Would make sense. JH also says, don't ever say that Negadelphia never accomplished anything. Fair point. Mike also says there are the ESPN and Fox games where you don't know. It's true. Although I'm pretty sure that wasn't it Sunday Night Baseball? They showed the entrance. We'll figure it out. Here we go. Stephen Geary says you should support journalism. It's a business expense. You can write it off. Stephen, what if I told you that that's a good point. What if I told you that that is a very intelligent point you make? And then I'm also going to laud you for correctly clicking on the video first on X, going into old Periscope mode and typing that out to send over. You know what, Steven? Because of you, I just might subscribe to the Inquirer. I'm not going to. But I might subscribe to the Inquirer. And if I do, I'm going to put a little note that Stephen Geary over on X was the reason that I did. No, I do support journalism. It's just that the Inquirer doesn't really write a lot of stuff that I care about. Is that bad to say? Am I allowed to say that? Can I say that on this show? That I don't actively view the Philadelphia Inquirer as a place that I genuinely care to go read many things at? Like, I don't. I kind of wish that I did. And it's no criticism to people who work over there. I mean, hell, one of our best friends over on the Press Row Show happens to write for the Philadelphia Inquirer. It's a lovely outlet. There are some good people over there. I am not besmirching the good name of the people who write for the Philadelphia Inquirer. It's just not a place that I go for my news every day. Every morning. I don't feel like I need it as part of the lifeblood of, well, my life or what we do on the show. But Steve, you know what? You've made a good point, and I will take it under consideration. I do mean that. Okay. This is great. Amadeo goes, I thought Russ was going to say I don't pay my taxes. No, I absolutely do pay my taxes, and sometimes I get upset with how high my taxes are. I don't know what, I should just be a billionaire or a multi-billionaire where I'm supposed to pay my fair share, but I pay absolutely no tax, like an Elon Musk. Whatever happened to Bernie? Is he around anymore? Steven says, in all fairness, my use of the word journalism might be doing a lot of heavy lifting. I think that's also fair. Okay. Oh, what's this? Chris says, $1 for 6 to 9 months, this subscription for the Inky, but I wouldn't call that rag journalism for the most part. Wow, okay. If we're going to talk about a rag, maybe you throw the name the Pottsville Republican and Evening Herald. No, I'm just kidding. I don't need the skooks getting upset if I besmirch the name of the newspaper that I used to have to read as a teenager up in Pottsville, where you would find constant grammatical and spelling errors. We won't do that. We won't go after the lovely people who, work for that paper either. Harvey Lichtenstein says, nice beaver. Thank you. Well, Bucky. Bucky's right here. Says, I just want to see if I'm doing the comment thing right. Oh, you are. You are. Okay. So, Duran, we feel good about. His intro is going to be shown. We all get to kind of live that pro wrestling life watching Duran. Now, while we're on the topic of Philadelphia, I want to go to something that's like tangentially affiliated with Philadelphia. And it's not a guy who played for Philadelphia. He did not play for a Philadelphia team. He played against Philadelphia, although not a ton because he was a player in the Western Conference. But I'm going to hit you with a clip that if you haven't seen it yet, it is going to warm the cockles of your heart. Okay? If you are the most negative person on YouTube or whichever platform you're watching this on right now, maybe TikTok, this will warm the cockles of your heart because Yao Ming apparently loves Philadelphia. Did you know that? I bet you didn't. But after we talk about it, you certainly will. Yao Ming was talking to Kyle Kuzma, and Kyle Kuzma asked Yao about his favorite American city. And in fairness, Yao played in Houston. You would expect Yao to say, I love Houston. Maybe you would think Yao Ming would say, I don't know, New York. If you're not going to go with Houston, you go New York, do you go LA? Where do you land if you're Yao Ming? Apparently it's Philadelphia. Let's go over to Yao Ming, who's going to explain himself and explain why Philadelphia is apparently his favorite city. Let's go out to Yao Ming.
Where is your favorite U.S. city?
My favorite, Philadelphia.
Why?
Cheesesteak. And I like museum.
Oh, you like museum?
All right. Is Yao Ming the most lovable human being that we've come across today, this week, this month, this year? First of all, we need to do a little bit of an analysis of the video here, okay? Kyle Kuzma's a big dude. We know this. Yao is a gigantic human being. Look at Yao. Big dude. That has to be a gigantic table, by the way. Lovely place settings. We also have a pretty nice spread here between the plates. And based on Yao's size, That has to be a gigantic table. But Yao loves Philadelphia for the cheesesteaks, and he also loves museums. Doesn't that warm your... I told you it was going to warm your heart. Doesn't that warm your heart? He is a culinary savant, and he also has the culture to appreciate the Philadelphia museums. Let's keep going.
And I like museum.
Oh, you like museums?
Well, Chicago have a good museum too, but Philadelphia have a museum, good museum, and also the Navy factory, depending on all the ocean. That's kind of a museum too.
So you're talking about the Navy Yard. So you've got the museums. Of course, we have the Art Museum. You want to include the Mutter Museum? A lot of great museums. Please Touch Museum. Franklin Institute. You got a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff you can go to. But then also talking about the Navy Yard. Pretty interesting as well.
That's nice. Cheesesteak guy. Okay. Cheesesteak guy. Okay. Okay. I like that.
Casino Mobley was for my first year. That's why he's from there. So
Oh, yeah.
Let me try this cheesesteak.
Right.
Cheesesteak.
So apparently Catino Mobley was one of his teammates. And Catino Mobley was from Philly. Now, if you can hear this in the background, the fire alarms are going off in the house, which can only mean one thing. Those smashed chicken wontons aren't going to plan. Although we have a very sensitive smoke detector near the kitchen. So either our house is currently burning down, my family are safe, and they've gotten out of the house with some potentially burning chicken wontons, or there's no fire, and we're still going to have delicious chicken wontons. I told you, I'm going to drop it in the community tab on the Russ Joy Show YouTube channel because I'm sure people are going to care. We'll find out soon. We'll see if St. Nancy also drops it in the comment section. We got to know what's up. But anyway, Yao Ming loving Philadelphia for the cheesesteaks and the museums. Obviously, if we get the opportunity, which we won't, but if we ever get the opportunity to have Yao Ming on the show, we will ask him about his favorite cheesesteak and his favorite museum. St. Nancy's here says sorry. All right, so we're good. The house clearly has not burned down. Thankfully, I do have an escape over here, so we're all right. I can always get out. Don't worry. Don't worry about little old me. Let's go over here. Mike Putz says Yao is no dummy. JH says, I never thought Philly was a go-to for the museums. I think there are some very nice museums to choose from. Ooh, here's a good question. Peter Tom Willis asks, do you chop your cheesesteak meat or not? I need an education. Of course, Peter lives out in Albuquerque. Albuquerque. Do you chop your cheesesteak meat or not? That doesn't mean do you like going to a place that chops the cheesesteak meat or not. It's asking specifically about each and every one of you and whether you chop your cheesesteak meat. And so I'm actually going to go over right now to the comments section on YouTube, on the Russ Joy Show YouTube channel, and I'm going to put up a poll because I do think it matters. I need to know from the people who are watching right now, do you chop up your cheesesteak meat or not? We're going to throw that on the channel right now because it's critical. Do you chop your cheesesteak meat? Yes or no? You gotta let me know. So I'm gonna let me weigh in here while we allow for some votes to populate over on the YouTube channel. I would say back in the day, I did not. Way back when, we had a George Foreman grill, and I used to do the steakums, and I wouldn't chop it up. I'd just go, and then you put a piece of cheese, probably like Kraft or some other crap because I was an idiot. And then you go, and you put it on the roll, usually a soft roll like a Myers roll, which also isn't the right kind of roll. It's fine. I was an idiot. I lived in Schuylkill County. Don't attack me. And you go, and that was it. Now, we have a giant Blackstone in the backyard. And so when it's cheesesteak time, it's shaved ribeye. That shaved ribeye is getting chopped up on the Blackstone. We're getting out the Cooper Sharp. I'm getting out the dome to put over the top. You do a little squirt of the water around them on the Blackstone. Drop the thing on there. Let the steam kind of build up so it melts the Cooper Sharp. Then we're getting like an Amorosa roll or a Lissio's roll or another, roll with some hardiness to it. Smacking it down. Ends up going cheese down to the bread. You got the steak. You're feeling great about life. Maybe crack a little bit of black pepper on there. You always mix a little bit of black pepper and some salt in with the meat. You feel great about it. I'd say I'm a chopped meat guy now. I didn't used to be. School lunches way back in the day. We used to have it looked like a hot dog roll, And then it was definitely a steak-em, and it was definitely a slice of like government-issued cheese. And there was no chopping, and it was on a soft bun. And to look back on it now, I feel like I was traumatized. But it actually was okay. And then they switched. It was junior year of high school. I can see it now. This is good for Amadeo for a short. It was the year 2006, and our school cafeteria changed from a flat, non-chopped cheesesteak on a soft bun to one where they chopped up the cheesesteak, and they mixed in their government-issued cheese, and they dumped a full cup of bland tomato sauce upon the cheesesteak. It soaked through the roll. It took any flavor that could have been in that beef or whatever government-issued meat it truly was, washed away the cheese, and created a disgusting concoction that didn't deserve the title of a cheesesteak. So now, years later, I do it right on the Blackstone. Cooper Sharp. Steam. Under a dome. Melt the cheese. Amoroso, Licio, bun. Something like that. Delicious cheesesteak. We all learn as we get older. Although I will tell you, if I could go back to like elementary, maybe even middle school, before they did the chopped cheesesteak up in Schuylkill County, nice little steak-em, some government cheese on a soft roll, I could get down with that once in a while. All right, we're going to go out to the poll. Right now, we are at 86% of people say, yes, they chopped their cheesesteak meat. We're going to end the poll there. So 86% of respondents chop their cheesesteak meat. Good to know. All right. What is this? Peter Tom Willis says we have a cheesesteak shop from a guy who's from Philly. He chops the hell out of the meat. That is the correct way to do it. JH says Pat's put out a cringy rant video on Instagram or TikTok or whatever the hell brain rot site where he was complaining about people while cross-contaminating everything in the kitchen. Yeah, I mean, you got to be careful with cross-contamination. You can't just get raw meat on everything. That's not great. Ray Supper says Yao loves Philadelphia because they have Daryl Morey, who could massively overpay him to come out of retirement. Daryl Morey. Maybe that's the backup center we need. Yao Ming. Let's see. We have people around here saying chopped. Rough chopped, not minced, says Jim Grasso. Since we know Peter's out there in Albuquerque, you get Chris asking if the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote are the neighbors. All right. That's the Yao Ming of it all. I have two other things I want to get to. One of them is absolutely ridiculous, and one of them is related to Philadelphia. Let's go with the Philly sports topic before we go to the non-Philly sports topic and wrap the show for today. This is maybe what I find to be the most interesting quote of the day. It's an interesting thing that got disseminated today. Found it very early this morning. Nick Foles talking about the two Super Bowl winning teams in the history of the Philadelphia Eagles. Of course, you had the team that won Super Bowl 52, the team that won Super Bowl 59. And Foles, of course, led the Eagles to this improbable Super Bowl. I mean, hell, it's right over here. Hello. Yeah, it's right here. Here's Nick. Well, hold on. There we go. Nick Foles holding the Lombardi Trophy. Fantastic moment. And then, of course, this past year, Jalen Hurts wraps up Super Bowl 59. And so if you remember, and of course you do because we were all sort of traumatized by it, the Eagles win Super Bowl 52 with a backup quarterback, and then that sparked the conversation of, oh, should the Eagles hand the reins over fully to Nick Foles? Do they have to give Nick Foles the job outright? What about Carson Wentz? And then other people who were like, well, of course not. Carson Wentz is a number 2 overall pick, and he's a guy that the Eagles have invested a lot of time and money into. He was pretty much an MVP runner-up right before he tore his knee against the Rams, and so people are like, well, of course you have to go back to Carson Wentz. Oh, but Carson Wentz didn't actually lead this team into the playoffs. He didn't actually lead them through the playoffs, and he didn't lead them to a Super Bowl win. And then there was kind of that thought of like, is the 2018 team, the one that would have gone to try to repeat, were they really set up for success, or was it kind of like a weird hodgepodge team? And it kind of felt a little bit hodgepodgey, and it thought like, you kind of thought, all right, maybe you got Carson Wentz back, and he's playing at that like MVP level like he did the season before, and maybe there's a nice big open window, and obviously we know that didn't come to fruition. So Nick Foles was on a show, And he compared that team to this Eagles team that's coming off of the win in Super Bowl 59. Now, I would almost kind of go back to even including the 2016 team, right? So I think back to the team that followed the Jalen Hurts-led Super Bowl loss to the Chiefs a couple years ago, and about how they were trying to rebound from that season, and obviously it didn't go well. But Foles wants to compare Super Bowl win to Super Bowl win in the season after it. And I think that having the kind of insight that Nick Foles does as a Super Bowl champion, as a guy who led the Eagles to the first ever Super Bowl in the franchise's history, I think it's important to kind of go out to him for a little bit of perspective, because Foles kind of gave you a read on how that 2018 season and the start of this 2025 season, how those teams stack up against each other, and then perhaps like what their ultimate ceiling could be. So we're going to go out to Nick Foles. We're going to kind of skip around here a little bit. But I think it's important to have the insight of somebody who's, truly been there, done that. Only one of two quarterbacks in the history of the Philadelphia Eagles to win a Super Bowl. Let's go out to Nick Foles.
Trying to respect that Carson was coming back, but I couldn't let my leadership take over, because then it's just like an awkward situation, because I know it's coming to an end no matter what. So that's your first little tidbit, and that's the thing we just kind of talked about. It was a weird place, because remember, there was like, was it Chris Long is the one who built the shrine in his locker, akin to like Helga Pataki having the bubble gum statue shrine to Arnold in Hey Arnold behind her clothes in the walk-in closet? You know what I'm talking about. Of course you do. Everybody loved Foles. Foles was a true leader. There were all kinds of things that came out after the fact about Wentz maybe not being the best leader in that locker room. Foles was cognizant of the fact that, like, all right, like, this dude was a high draft pick. Like, he was the franchise guy. I was brought back here. I'm a backup. You know, how much can I really impact things going into the attempted follow-up to a Super Bowl run? Let's go back to Foles. One way to say this is a very different situation for the Eagles. Their franchise guys led them to a Super Bowl. Their amazing vets led them to a Super Bowl.
So start there. Jalen Hurts, obviously, franchise guy, led them to the Super Bowl. Backbone of the team, spirit of the team, heart of the team. Yes. You had vets like Lane Johnson lead this team to another Super Bowl. Brandon Graham not back, but Brandon Graham did help this Eagles team win a second Super Bowl. You did that on the back of some of those veteran players. And then you have a bunch of young guys on the team that you think are going to be franchise cornerstones. You would expect a Cooper DeJean, right? You would expect a Reed Blankenship to be a long-term piece here. You would think that like a Nakobe Dean, when healthy, will be a big part of this. Zach Bond was a guy that they brought in kind of off the scrap heap, turned into an all-pro. He's now been re-signed to significant money. They expect him to be critical. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, you would expect those guys to have massive seasons as well and be cornerstones of the franchise going forward. You have Saquon Barkley, who was arguably the best free agent signing in the history of Philadelphia sports. He's back. You have the stud in A.J. Brown on the outside. You have a stud that you drafted in Devontae Smith, who's been fantastic. You have a very good tight end underneath in Dallas Goedert. You have an offensive line that, for the most part, is largely back from a season ago. It is a very different situation. We're not sitting around, unless you're an ass clown. Nobody's sitting around going, is Jalen Hurts really a good quarterback? Is Jalen Hurts really a top 10 quarterback in the National Football League? Should Jalen Hurts actually be on the top 100? Like, anybody who's trying to give into the discourse here, oh, Jalen Hurts isn't a top 100 player. Stop. I get it. Sports radio is slow right now. Stop. I also get that in the context of that it was assuming that there were 25 players that you would think are going to be in the top 25, and so that must mean that Hurts isn't in. I didn't agree with that take. But you have to be fair. Hurts is absolutely a top 10 quarterback. I can make a case he's probably somewhere in the top 5, top 7 in the league right now. Because you can't judge against him just because the offense has a lot of weapons and has a very good offensive line. You can't hold that against the player. He doesn't control that. But Jalen Hurts is the guy who led you to a Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts is the guy who twice now has outperformed Patrick Mahomes, arguably the best quarterback of his generation, in 2 out of the last 3 Super Bowls. There's no question mark at quarterback. There's no question at running back. There are no questions at your top 2 wide receiver spots. There's really not a question about your number 1 tight end. On the line, there really aren't many questions. Your secondary, yeah, your second cornerback spot is a little bit of an issue. And I didn't mention Quinyon Mitchell before. He obviously deserves a lot of respect as a guy that's going to be part of this thing for a long time going forward. And you would hope that Jihad Campbell is going to be a big part of this going forward. Like, there are a lot of guys on this team that deserve a lot of respect, that helped you win last year or have just been drafted and you think are going to be a big part of this thing going forward. All right, let's go back over to Foles.
Way more dangerous than we were in 18. 18, the next season after Super Bowl, we were still a great team. We still had a chance to even make it to the NFC Championship. We figured it out at the end. But at the end of the day, we were confused. That we struggled through that season because there was so much confusion of, like, what is this team because of how the year went prior.
And the confusion is the thing that kills you. I think that the confusion around that team, whose team is it really, all that kind of stuff, that's the kind of thing that doomed that follow-up team, that team that was trying to repeat. And as soon as there's a question about who the real leaders are on the team, who are the guys that you're really trying to lean on, when there are questions about that, it's going to create some discord. It could create a little bit of internal chaos with the team. I think that's what we probably saw in the team that followed up the Super Bowl 52 win. And now you have Foles from the inside of the locker room saying as much.
The Eagles don't have that. The Eagles, everyone's back. These guys are the ones who won the Super Bowl.
Boom.
They are so dangerous, but they're also hungry. Yeah. I love the fact that Jalen Hurts is saying what he is, and he's backing it up. I'm a big action guy. I like confident speak, but Jalen backs it up.
Yeah, he does.
And
that's correct.
He's not a man of many words, which is great.
And when he says something, it matters.
This is a really important thing that Foles is about to get into, about being a leader. You can lead by results. You can lead by example and not have to be the loudest guy in the locker room. Like, there are teams that need vocal leaders, and you would have to assume that the Super Bowl 59 winning Philadelphia Eagles, that team had plenty of vocal leaders. We all kind of look at Brandon Graham, right? But there are a lot of vocal leaders on that team. Hurts didn't necessarily have to be that guy. And sometimes when you are not one of the outspoken guys, when you do speak up, it carries a lot of weight. Now, let's get into it, because Foles is about to give you a little bit of insight there as well.
It reminds me, like, he speaks more than Darren Sproles. But Darren, who I was talking with the other day, like, Darren's one of my favorite teams of all time. Did he speak a lot? No, but his actions were the best I'd ever seen, the way he approached himself. But if he did speak, everyone shut up.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Sometimes if you are someone who just is spouting off nonstop in the locker room, eventually it kind of falls on deaf ears. In the case of a Sproles, in the case, obviously, of a Hurts, very different. When they speak up, it's time for everybody in the locker room to listen.
Because they knew that he didn't speak often, but when he did, it mattered, and it came from the heart. That's why I like them. They're a very dangerous team, very different than we were. That was a little bit of insight that people...
So that's the difference, and that's from somebody who won a Super Bowl, won the first Super Bowl in the history of this team. And, like, that to me carries a lot of weight. It really does. So I thought it was kind of cool. There was actually another clip that was going around. All right, I found it. So this was from the Eagles put this out, and it was a little bit of coaching that Jalen Hurts did on the sideline with Will Shipley. And I want you to see who overheard it and absolutely loved it. None other than somebody that we are a huge fan of at this show, always have been a huge fan of. And I think we're, like, kind of at the forefront. Like, this goes back to the early Crossing broadcast days. But a guy that I've been very high on for a long time, even before he had his full breakout, Jordan Mailata. I want to throw out to this because this is, again, somehow on this Friday, we've turned this into, like, the heartwarming show. But I want you to see Hurts, again, not the loudest, not the most vocal, but a guy who's actively trying to coach up some of his teammates.
Hey, Willie, that's a great route, great catch.
So he's talking to Shipley, talking about his route.
Remember not to kind of did what you did in the offseason.
Yeah.
Get your width.
I was too tight.
Yeah, you were tight.
Okay.
And now watch what Mailata says.
I love that. You coaching. I love that.
Good job, guys.
You got Mailata there, kind of giving Jalen Hurts the kudos for coaching up his teammate, saying, I love when you coach. Love when you coach him up. It's a good thing, man. Like, you just think about the dynamics of a locker room. You think about, like, the way that you kind of hold each other accountable. It's really cool. I think it's great. That's a cool thing. Let me go over to the comments, and then there's one last thing I want to touch on very, very briefly. Mike is correct that back in that Super Bowl 52 season, when Wentz went down, people said the season was over. In fairness, like, Foles put together one of the most majestic runs ever for a backup quarterback. To take that team, lead them just as strongly into the postseason, and outduel Tom Brady in a Super Bowl. I don't know if we'll ever see anything like that again. It truly was amazing. Raymond Supper says national media doesn't respect Jalen, and fans who listen to them eat that rat poison. Broads eviscerated one the other night at 1 a.m. I saw Broads' clip. Guy just kind of going off about how Justin Herbert could win with this team. Jalen Hurts couldn't win with the Chargers. Load of shit. I mean, I will say that in the AFC, it is a much tougher path. Like, you do have to go through the Buffaloes, the Baltimores of the world, obviously the Kansas Cities of the world. And if you're playing in the AFC West, your life is a lot more complicated because you have Patrick Mahomes in your division. Do I think that Hurts would be able to get some better results out of the Chargers? He might give you a more dynamic way to try to win games. Do I think that Justin Herbert could come here and win a Super Bowl? I'm not as sold on that. Until Herbert actually figures out a way to put things together and have a decent playoff run, kind of hard to think of him as anything more than a hypothetical player. We also have this. Peter Tom Willis says, I like Foles deciding to get more involved in media. He's the perfect guy for it. He's articulate. He's likable. He doesn't come off as phony. He doesn't come off as fake. Sometimes he muddles his words a little bit. Sometimes you kind of get the aw shucks out of Nick Foles. I think that ultimately as a media personality, Foles is the kind of guy that you would want to build a team around. Now, I don't know if that means he should get into color commentary. I can't imagine him being the right guy for a studio show. Maybe on a local level, like an Eagles post-game live. Could I see Foles being on a panel like that? Maybe. I think he actually would be really good in color commentary. I'd almost love to see Nick Foles get involved as a color commentator for a season and just see over the course of the season how he develops. I think he could be really good. If nothing else, as a podcast host, as a YouTube personality, Foles is very, very good. Okay. Last thing I wanted to get to. It's very brief. It is maybe the ugliest thing I've ever seen. I've seen a lot of ugly things. We've all seen a lot of ugly things. There was a Pacers fan who decided to get the dumbest tattoos and probably the ugliest tattoos I've ever seen. And it looked like something out of Rick and Morty, which isn't even a show I watch, but I'm familiar with the art style. There's a Pacers fan that got tattoos on his hands of Reggie Miller and Tyrese Halliburton. And I thought that this was such a hideous thing that I needed to show it on the program. These are the guy's hand tattoos. So the one on the left is supposed to be Reggie Miller, and the one on the right is supposed to be Tyrese Halliburton. Now, the one on the right is bad, okay? But if you gave me just that image, just that part of the image of Tyrese Halliburton doing the choking thing, and you said this is an NBA player and they play in the Eastern Conference, I could have probably gotten Tyrese Halliburton. Even without remembering the actual moment that he did the choking thing, I could probably get Tyrese Halliburton out of that. But on the left side, that is not Reggie Miller. In no world is that Reggie Miller. You could tell me that's like Eminem getting hit in the face with a shovel. That does not look anything like Reggie Miller. I mean, the only thing that has in common with Reggie Miller is that there is a face and there is some very, very low stubble. Otherwise, there's nothing about that tattoo that screams Reggie Miller. Not a single thing. And also, the angle of the point is wrong, and I'm not going to point out the fact that, the fingertip and the edge of the fingertip look very suggestive. We're not going to talk about that, but if you were to zoom in on it at home, you'd be able to figure it out pretty quickly. That doesn't really look like much of a fingertip, and also, I don't know what he's shooting out of the end of his fingertip, but it doesn't look great. So, not great hand tattoos. Now, again, was that the request? Was that what the person really wanted? Did that person go out of their way to say, oh yeah, I want them to look like this? And by the way, somebody put this out. This is why I love Twitter. This is why I love Photoshop. This is why I love the internet sometimes. Somebody replaced Halliburton's head with the one from the tattoo. That's horrible. That's absolutely horrible. JH says multimillionaires and they can't find a tattoo artist anywhere but Wish. Yikes. I don't know whose hands they were on. Were they on a famous person? All right, now I might have to look into this because they're not on Halliburton's hands. Who is the person? Hold on. Jared G. Andrews on Instagram. Let's see. Can we find Jared G. Andrews on Instagram? Hold on. Is this a famous person? Is this a very wealthy person? All right, so this person has 6,300 followers. Wait, is this person a tattoo artist? Folk art and traditional art tattoo. All right, hold on. All right, I feel like we kind of have to look at this guy's profile now. Okay, so is this like an intentional art style? Because like, all right, here you go. You have like a little Simpsons thing, and obviously that's a different style. Garfield, like, what is this? Oh, I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions about this tattoo style. I guess I'm glad they're not my tattoos. I don't really get it. Oh boy, that's really, really, really something. Okay. Joe Fisher with a good question. Why did Reggie Miller look like Homer Simpson? Great question. Amadeo says, gave Reggie a 7 head. Yeah. Lenny Joseph says, the one on the left looked like Beavis after a bender. Oh my gosh, it's so bad. I don't get it. All right. I think that's probably where we're going to wrap for today. We talked about some Philly stuff. We talked about some non-Philly stuff. I did see over in the comments, somebody brought up a little bit of a hockey point that Marco Rossi has re-signed with Minnesota. So that was breaking news as of an hour ago. Marco Rossi signs a 3-year contract with a $5 million AAV to remain with the Minnesota Wild. I think we talked about this on the show. Flyers really did not have interest in Marco Rossi at a meaningful level. I know people wanted the Flyers to go after him. It just kind of never made sense. Is it a good contract? It doesn't seem like a bad one. $5 million isn't a terrible price. It's just been a very weird kind of summer and a weird kind of offseason for Rossi and the Wild. I think he would have expected that he would have gotten re-signed a lot earlier, but it did happen. So there you go. 3 years, $5 million per year, $15 million total. So we'll be back on Monday with the Russ Joy Show. Until then, do me a favor, like the video, share the video, subscribe. Ring the bell to get notified on YouTube when we go live with an episode. If you see a clip pop up, if you see a short pop up, make sure you hit those with a like. It really does help. If you share the video with a friend, a family member, an ex-girlfriend, whatever, that's fine. Just share the video. It's always helpful. And if you listen to podcast feeds like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Pandora, you can leave a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Music. You can leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and I'll read it here on the show. I'll be back on Monday. In the meantime, this has been the Russ Joy Show, and I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart, and it's also the name of the show. Talk to all of you on Monday here on the Russ Joy Show.